governments and companies are sort of in catch-22. The competition and the fiscal constraints force both corporations and governments to become more and more digital, to become more efficient, and yet that's precisely the thing that opens them for more threats. And these threats are not going away, and the question is, how do we deal with that?
It's a truism, really. Cybersecurity is now top of everybody's list of priorities in every government, financial institutions, corporations, increasingly even individuals.
It's one of the toughest kinds of risk to manage and understand and model, because the past is not prologue, and the only thing that you know is that you were good yesterday. You don't know that you're brilliant enough today.
If I were to make a major run on a bank 20 years ago, I would have to do it physically. And one of the things that I could use is a rifle, like an M16. As a criminal, you couldn't go and get an F-16 fighter pilot, right? The thing is, in cyber, criminals can get the F-16 that was state-sponsored and is very sophisticated.
We used to be dealing with somebody in a cabin in Montana that was hacking for fun, and now we're dealing with nation states. And I want to be clear when we talk about nation states, because this is really important. It's not that the actual country, like China and Iran, they're doing their infiltration, but what happens is a lot of those actors, when they're not at work, they are also doing it for profit for themselves, using those same tools.
And the motivation is obviously rising dramatically. I mean, it's super lucrative. We just got to face it. So there's a big problem.
Pretty soon we're going to see that the money and the risk are not being measured correctly. And it is your jobs as CEOs to understand this, because I think if everyone really did understand the risk that we are in, whether it's our banking systems or the power grid, you'd be thinking about it every moment of every day and trying to fix it.
I was responsible for the trustworthy computing in Microsoft for a period of time. I would tell you that being the guy responsible for security, I just couldn't sleep at night. It's just that things always wrong and the people always attacking you, and especially Microsoft. Every financial institute, I'm sure Kathy couldn't sleep at night, being the head of security there.
What I have found is cyber is a place where it's easy to get lost in the threat. And the one thing that will paralyze a board or a management team or an organization like the one I run is to be lost in that threat. And yet there are technologies and there are brilliant people at fighting and defending large firms.
There are two good news for banks and financial institutions, I think. One is that the awareness is very high. It wasn't like that 5-10 years ago. And two, financial institutions can afford it. The resources are there. The question is, how do you allocate these resources?
It's very, very difficult, especially trying to find security experts in Silicon Valley. So it is a challenge, and we're looking. We bring a majority of ours in from the military. Most are ex-military, and now what we're also looking to do is we are doing a lot of partnerships and teaming. So the reality is we're teaming with Microsoft, we're teaming with FireEye, we're doing a lot more of that, and we're sharing data across each other, which is starting to help a little bit. But the reality is there's not enough security talent out there. I heard something very interesting last night about this. If you take a look at the U.S. government, we have an academy for the Army, we have an academy for the Navy, we have an academy for the Air Force. Will there be an academy for cyber? Right? And if you take a look at some of the other countries, they are already moving in that direction. So there is no real place for that training except for via the corporate side and via the military, and it's just too slow for what we're going to see in the future.
We actually found a secret formula at Microsoft that is actually look at Israel. So we have been acquiring Israeli cybersecurity companies like crazy. And I was talking to my colleague, Scott Guthrie. He just travels to Israel so frequently acquiring companies. I joked to him, I said, you should get the honorary citizenship from Israel. How much money you have spent on Israeli startups, my goodness.